If you truly want to learn how to grow grapes from cuttings in the most reliable, scientific, and beginner-friendly way, then watch this video all the way till the end, because once you finish the entire tutorial, you will be able to confidently root your own grape cuttings at home, even if you have never propagated a plant before in your life. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss important gardening guides like this one. Today's video is all about understanding why grapes should be grown from cuttings instead of seeds or air layering, why cuttings give more consistent results, what tools and rooting hormones you need, how to prepare the perfect cutting, how to stop your cuttings from drying, rotting, or failing, and what hidden mistakes most beginners unknowingly make that completely destroy the cutting before it even has a chance to grow. This entire script is designed to answer every doubt, every confusion, and every fear that a person naturally has in their mind when they hear the word cutting propagation, especially for grapes, which are famous for their fast but delicate rooting behavior. Growing grapes from cuttings is considered the most beneficial, most predictable, and most gardener-friendly method for establishing new grapevines. The biggest reason experts prefer cuttings over seeds is genetic reliability. When you plant grapes from seeds, the resulting plant does not remain true to type. In simple terms, a grape seedling almost never produces the same flavor, size, sweetness, or texture as the grape it came from. Seeds have genetic variation and do not carry the guaranteed traits that you want, meaning you might spend 2 to 3 years nurturing a plant that eventually produces sour, small, or completely different grapes. Air layering is another method people sometimes consider, but for grapes, it is much slower, less efficient, and often unnecessary because grapevines naturally root very easily from cuttings when treated correctly. Cuttings offer a shortcut. You get an exact clone of the parent plant. The same grape variety, same sweetness, same growth habit, same disease resistance, and same harvesting season. This is why vineyards across the world, from Italy to California, rely almost entirely on cuttings. Cuttings also grow faster, reach fruiting stage earlier, and require fewer resources. You can produce many plants from one mother vine, which makes it extremely cost-effective. But even though grape cuttings root easily, many people fail because they miss small but extremely important steps. And throughout this video, we will break down each of those steps so clearly that by the end, you will be able to root cuttings successfully with a success rate far higher than the average beginner. The first thing to understand is the science behind grape cuttings. A grapevine has nodes. These are the points where leaves come out, buds appear, and most importantly, where new roots form when the vine is cut and placed in the right conditions. The cutting must be taken when the vine is in its semi-hardwood stage. This is the time when the vine is not too soft and fresh and not too woody. Semi-hardwood cuttings contain enough stored energy to push new growth and enough firmness to avoid collapsing or rotting under moisture. Many people ask, do we really need rooting hormones for grape cuttings? The answer is not mandatory, but extremely helpful. Rooting hormones dramatically increase your chances of success, especially if you are a beginner. There are 3 types of rooting hormones you need to know: IBA, indole-3-butyric acid, NAA, naphthalene acetic acid, and natural organic alternatives such as willow water, aloe vera gel, honey, and cinnamon. Among these, IBA-based powders and gels are considered the most effective for grapes because they stimulate quicker root formation and protect the cutting from fungal infection. Many professional growers use a combination of IBA and NAA because it strengthens root growth even in challenging conditions. If you do not have synthetic hormones, aloe vera gel is a surprisingly powerful natural rooting booster due to its antibacterial and antifungal properties. Honey prevents infection but does not promote root formation strongly. Cinnamon acts as a fungicide, which is great for protecting your cuttings from rot. Willow water contains natural auxins, which help but are weaker than commercial hormones. No matter which rooting hormone you choose, consistency is the key. A properly prepared cutting with a good rooting hormone can root in as little as 2 to 4 weeks in ideal conditions. But before applying any hormone, the cutting itself must be chosen correctly. One of the biggest reasons why grape cuttings fail is that people cut branches that are too young green, too soft, or too old, dry, and woody. Young green vines lose water very fast and collapse within days. Overaged woody cuttings take too long to root and are prone to fungal infection. The perfect thickness for a grape cutting is roughly the size of a pencil or slightly thicker. The ideal length is 8 to 12 inches, with at least 3 to 4 nodes. Always make a clean, angled cut below the lowest node because roots usually form from the node region. The top cut should be straight so you can easily identify top and bottom. If you take multiple cuttings, mark the bottom side so you don't accidentally plant them upside down, which is another funny but common mistake people make. Another important question beginners ask is, why do grape cuttings rot? Rotting happens due to excess moisture, poor airflow, contaminated tools, or using soil that stays wet for too long. Always sterilize your pruners with alcohol before making a cut. Many people ignore this, but it matters because a dirty tool carries fungus from branch to branch. Your potting mix must be well draining. A perfect rooting mix contains perlite, coco peat, sand, and a little compost, but only a little. Too much compost holds moisture and increases fungal risk. You want a loose mix that remains slightly moist but not soggy. Grape cuttings love oxygen around their root zone. If the soil is muddy, swampy, or sticky, the cutting suffocates. The bottom of the pot should have drainage holes. If you are rooting in a tray or bag, make sure excess water can escape.
Another major reason for failure is dehydration. Grape cuttings lose water through their buds and bark very quickly. If they dry before rooting, they die. To prevent this, remove most of the leaves but keep at least one small leaf if the cutting is taken during active growth season. This reduces water loss. You can also seal the top with grafting wax or candle wax to lock moisture inside the cutting. A humidity dome or plastic bottle placed over the cutting creates a mini greenhouse effect, keeping moisture around the cutting while preventing direct waterlogging of the soil. Beginners often skip this step, and the cutting dries from the inside even though the soil looks moist. Now let's talk about temperature. Grapes root best between 20 degrees Celsius to 26 degrees Celsius. Cold temperatures slow root formation to the point where the cutting might rot before rooting. Too much heat dries the cutting from inside. If you live in a cold region, use a heat mat under the pot to maintain warm soil. If you live in a hot area, place the pot in bright shade, not direct sunlight. Direct sun cooks the cutting before it forms roots. Bright, indirect light is perfect. Another frequently asked question is, can we root grape cuttings in water? Yes, you can, but transitioning from water roots to soil sometimes causes shock because water roots are soft and fragile. Soil-grown roots are stronger. If you are a beginner, rooting directly in soil is more reliable. If you still prefer water rooting, use a dark container to block light, because sunlight on water leads to algae growth, which reduces oxygen and causes the cutting to rot. Change water every 3 days. Now let's talk about air layering for grapes and why it's not as commonly recommended as cuttings. Grapevines already root very easily from cuttings. Air layering is only used when the mother plant is old, weak, or not producing good new growth. Air layering takes longer, sometimes months, and requires more maintenance. Cuttings, on the other hand, produce dozens of clones quickly, and you don't need to damage the mother vine as much. Another reason cuttings fail is fungal attack. Grapes are very sensitive to fungal infections during rooting. Using cinnamon powder or fungicide powder is helpful. Do not keep the cuttings in dark, wet corners because that encourages mold. Good airflow prevents mold from forming. If you see white, fuzzy mold on the cutting, wipe it off and dust the area with cinnamon. Now let's address the biggest question of all. How long does it take for grape cuttings to root? In ideal conditions with rooting hormone, the cutting starts forming callus tissue within 7 to 10 days. Callus is the white swelling at the bottom from which roots emerge. True roots start appearing around 2 to 4 weeks. In cold weather, it may take 6 to 8 weeks. The cutting must not be disturbed during this period. Beginners often pull the cutting up to check for roots. This destroys delicate new roots. Never pull the cutting. Instead, gently tug. If it resists, roots are forming. Now let's talk about watering. Watering too much is deadly. Watering too little is also deadly. The soil should stay lightly moist like a squeezed sponge, not dripping wet. When the top 1 inch of soil becomes dry, sprinkle water gently. Avoid pouring too much water directly on the cutting base. Use a spray bottle. Now, one of the most common beginner fears. What if my cutting buds start growing before roots form? This is normal. Grapes use energy stored inside the stem to push new leaves, but if leaves grow too fast and roots have not formed yet, the cutting can collapse. To avoid this, keep the cutting in bright shade, not direct sun, so leaf growth stays slow while root growth continues underground. Many beginners also ask, should I plant the cutting horizontally or vertically? Always plant it vertically, with the bottom node buried 2 to 3 inches in soil. Do not bury the cutting too deep. Do not leave too much exposed either. The cutting should feel stable in the soil. If needed, you can support it with a small stick. Another question, when should we transplant the cutting? After 6 to 8 weeks, when the cutting has strong leaves and at least 4 to 6 inches of new growth, you can transfer it to a bigger pot. Be gentle, roots are delicate. Never expose roots to strong sunlight during transplanting. Now let's discuss seasonal timing. The best time for grape cuttings is late winter to early spring, when the plant is still dormant but waking up. Dormant cuttings root extremely well. In summer, cuttings dry very fast. In monsoon or extremely wet seasons, fungal rot increases. Choose your season wisely because timing dramatically affects success. Another reason people fail is using unhealthy mother vines. Never take cuttings from diseased or weak vines. Choose strong, vigorous shoots with healthy buds. If the mother plant is infected with pests like mealybugs, aphids, or fungal spots, the disease transfers to the cutting. Always wash the cutting with clean water and dip it in a mild fungicide before rooting. Now let's answer another common question. How long before the cutting becomes a fruit-producing plant? Grapes grown from cuttings usually start producing fruit in 2 to 3 years, depending on the variety and care. With good pruning and proper fertilization, they may fruit earlier. The key is strong root development in the first year. And finally, let's discuss the emotional part, confidence. Many beginners feel scared, thinking cuttings always fail. But once you understand the science, correct thickness, correct nodes, correct humidity, correct soil, correct hormones, correct season, you will realize it is not magic or luck, it is a process. Follow the method from this video step by step and your success rate will rise dramatically. Grape cuttings also fail when the grower misunderstands the balance between light and darkness during the rooting stage. Many people think keeping a cutting in complete darkness will help it root better, but in reality, grape cuttings still need gentle, filtered light to maintain their internal hormonal balance. When a cutting is placed in total darkness, it can become weak, elongated, and pale, wasting its stored energy. On the other hand, putting it in harsh sunlight before it has roots will dehydrate it in a few hours. The correct approach is bright, indirect light for at least 6 hours a day during the rooting period. Light helps the buds develop slowly and naturally while keeping the cutting alive. Another situation beginners face is confusion between callus formation and rot. A healthy callus looks firm, off-white, and dry on the surface. Rot, however, appears brown, mushy, and foul-smelling. Many new gardeners panic and throw away a cutting when they see callus, thinking it's a dead end. But that callus is the first sign of success. Once you understand these small visual differences, your confidence grows significantly.
Water quality is another ignored factor. Hard water with high salt or mineral content can prevent root formation and burn tender new roots. If your tap water is salty or has visible white deposits around taps, use filtered RO or rainwater for your cuttings. Soft water supports better cell activity inside the plant. Another high-level detail many people miss is hormone concentration. Too much rooting hormone is just as harmful as too little. If you dip the cutting too deeply in powder or use too strong a gel concentration, the cutting may experience auxin overdose, which burns the tissue and stops root formation. The correct method is to dip the cutting lightly, tap off the excess powder, and then plant. If using gel, coat only the bottom 1 inch. A thin, even layer works best. Beginners often coat the entire stem, thinking it will produce roots everywhere, but grapes root primarily from the lower nodes, not from the middle of the stem. Another vital point is oxygen. People water so heavily that they forget roots need air. Even before roots form, the stem tissue at the base needs oxygen to stay alive. That's why the soil mix must be airy. Perlite is the key ingredient because it adds oxygen pockets into the soil. If you do not have perlite, clean river sand mixed with cocoa peat also works. Avoid pure garden soil because it compacts easily and suffocates the cutting. Some professionals even pre-root grape cuttings in perlite alone because it provides near-perfect aeration. Many beginners also wonder whether scraping the bark at the bottom helps. Slightly wounding or scraping the bottom 1 inch of the cutting exposes the cambium layer, encouraging faster callus and root production. But the scraping should be gentle. A deep wound invites fungus. Too many wounds increase risk. One clean scrape on one side is enough. Dip that wounded part into rooting hormone and plant. Another reason cuttings fail is because people take cuttings from vines that are in active fruiting. During fruiting, the vine is using its energy to ripen grapes. Taking cuttings during this period stresses both the mother plant and the cuttings themselves. Dormant or post-pruning wood is the best material. Grapevines naturally produce new shoots after pruning, and these shoots make excellent cuttings for propagation. Next is airflow. Many people place cuttings in closed, poorly ventilated rooms. Humidity domes are good, but they must have tiny air holes. If the air inside the dome becomes stale, condensation builds up and fungus begins to spread. To fix this, open the dome for 1 minute every day to allow fresh air to enter. This small step dramatically reduces fungal infections. Let's talk about sterilization. Anything that touches the cutting must be clean. Your hands, your pruners, your pots, and especially your soil. Many failures occur because people reuse old pots that contain hidden fungal spores or pathogens. Wash your pots with soap and water. If possible, disinfect with a mild bleach solution and let them dry in sunlight. Sunlight is a natural sterilizer and kills many bacteria and fungi. Another important detail is the depth of planting. Beginners sometimes push the cutting too deep, thinking more soil contact means more roots, but this suffocates the cutting. Only the bottom 2 to 3 nodes should be buried. Any deeper and the cutting may rot. And do not bury it too shallow either. If the cutting is unstable, roots may form unevenly. Another very common question people ask is, should we remove the buds before rooting? The answer is no. Buds are essential because they produce leaves, and leaves support photosynthesis. But if buds grow too fast, remove the largest leaf to slow down energy consumption. Leave one small leaf to help maintain balance. Too many leaves will dry the cutting. Too few leaves will slow development. Many people also worry about pests. Even at the cutting stage, tiny insects like aphids, spider mites, or scale can attack tender buds and weaken the cutting. Before rooting, dip the cutting in a mild insecticidal solution or neem oil mix to remove hidden pests. Prevention is better than cure. Another overlooked factor is vibration and disturbance. Cuttings must remain stable. If the pot keeps shaking or moving, delicate root tips may break. Place your pot in a corner where it won't be touched frequently. Do not keep it near a door that bangs with wind. Do not keep it where pets can disturb it. Now let's talk about soil temperature. This is different from air temperature. You may think your environment is warm enough, but the soil might still be cold. Cold soil slows down the cell activity required for root formation. To warm the soil, place the pot in a location that receives morning light or use a heat mat. But avoid overheating the soil because excessive heat kills callus cells. Another question people ask is whether to use rooting plugs, peat pellets, or propagation trays. All three work, but peat pellets dry very fast and may require constant monitoring. Propagation trays work best if you are rooting many cuttings because they maintain uniform moisture. For home gardeners, a simple pot with well-draining mix is perfect. Another reason cuttings fail is lack of patience. Many beginners expect roots to appear in a few days. They water too frequently, change soil, or disturb the cutting. Grape cuttings require routine but also calmness. Do not overthink every small change. The plant knows what to do. Your role is to create the correct environment and wait. Let's talk about storing cuttings. If you collect cuttings in winter, you can store them in the refrigerator wrapped in moist newspaper inside a plastic bag for several weeks. But the newspaper should be damp, not wet. Excess moisture inside the bag will cause fungus. This storage method is used by vineyards to transport cuttings long distances. When you are ready to root them, remove the cuttings from the fridge, let them warm to room temperature for a few hours, apply rooting hormone, and plant. Another tip is to always seal the top cut. A top wound left open dries quickly, letting moisture escape. You can seal it with grafting wax, candle wax, or even melted beeswax. This preserves internal moisture and increases rooting chances. Many gardeners ask whether to dip the cutting in water before applying rooting hormone. The answer is yes, but only briefly. A quick dip helps the hormone powder stick better. But do not soak the cutting for long because it absorbs too much water and becomes weak. Let's address another fear: what if the buds swell but then turn brown? This usually happens when the cutting had enough energy to start bud swelling, but not enough moisture or root activity to continue. This means either the humidity was too low or the cutting dried internally. To avoid this, always use a humidity dome or cover during the first 2 weeks. Another question: should I bottom water or top water? Bottom watering is safer because it keeps the stem base dry and reduces rot. Place the pot in a tray of water for a few minutes and let the soil absorb moisture from below. Remove the pot once the topsoil feels lightly moist. Some growers use cloning machines or aeroponic propagators. These systems spray the cuttings with nutrient water and oxygen, promoting faster root formation. While effective, they're not necessary for home gardeners. Soil rooting remains the simplest method.
Let's talk about nutrients. During rooting, your cutting does not need fertilizers. Fertilizers too early can burn tissues and prevent rooting. Once the plant establishes roots and grows new leaves, you can start a very mild fertilizer. Organic compost tea works well. Chemical fertilizers should be diluted heavily. Another overlooked factor is pH. Grapes prefer a slightly acidic to neutral pH of 6.0 to 7.0. If your soil is too alkaline, rooting may slow down. Cocoa peat naturally has an ideal pH, which is why it is commonly used in propagation mixes. Another important subject is pruning the new plant. Once your cutting becomes a plant, do not let it grow wild. Grapevines need direction. Remove weak shoots and allow one strong leader to develop. This ensures a strong main trunk, which later supports heavy fruit clusters. Let's talk about environmental stress. Sudden temperature changes, like moving the cutting from AC room to outdoor heat, can shock the plant. Keep the environment stable. If you want to acclimatize the cutting to sunlight, do it slowly over a week. Another reason cuttings fail is burying them in soil with unbalanced moisture pockets. Some areas remain very wet while others remain dry. Always mix your soil thoroughly. Your cutting should not sit in a wet pocket. Many beginners also fear fungal diseases like damping off. This disease causes stems to suddenly collapse. To avoid it, always sterilize the soil, avoid overwatering, and add a bit of cinnamon or neem powder to the soil. Another powerful technique is bottom heat combined with top coolness. Warm soil encourages rooting, but cooler air slows leaf growth. This balance creates ideal conditions. Finally, understand that every cutting carries unique genetics, energy, and health conditions. Some cuttings simply root faster than others. Taking multiple cuttings increases your overall success rate. In the end, growing grapes from cuttings is more than just a propagation technique. It is a patient, rewarding journey that teaches you how plants think, how they breathe, and how they respond to the environment you create for them. Once you understand the balance of moisture, warmth, light, hygiene, and timing, grape cuttings stop feeling complicated and start feeling predictable. Every failure becomes a lesson, every success becomes motivation to grow more varieties, and every rooted cutting becomes a living reminder that nature responds to care, attention, and the right methods. If you've watched this entire video and follow the explanations step by step, you now have everything you need to grow strong, healthy grapevines from simple cuttings. Vines that will one day climb, spread, and reward you with bunches of sweet, homegrown grapes. So, take your pruners, prepare your soil, apply your rooting hormones wisely, and start your grape growing journey today. Thank you for staying till the end, and I'll see you in the next video with more powerful and practical gardening knowledge.